I held his hand at my wife's funeral. Darius was my sister Lorraine's only boy, and when she passed from breast cancer, a disease that took her quietly, the way it always takes the strongest women, he was just 13 years old. I stepped up, not because anyone asked me to, because Lorraine was my blood, and Darius was all she'd left behind. He started calling me Uncle Ray, but the truth is, I was more of a second father. That was 24 years ago. The morning of Gloria's funeral, Darius stood beside me at the graveside, his hand firm on my shoulder as they lowered her into the Georgia red clay. I remember thinking, Lord, thank you for this boy. My own kids were far gone. Jasmine lived in Houston. Marcus was out in Seattle. They'd flown in for the service, stayed a week, hugged me hard at the airport, and had to get back to their lives. I didn't hold it against them. They had careers, children, mortgages. I understood all of that, but Darius was here. Darius lived 45 minutes away in Decatur. And for the first few months after Gloria died, he called every single Sunday without fail. Checked in. Asked how I was eating. Whether the first was sleeping. I was barely doing either. Our house in Stone Mountain sat on a half-acre lot with a wraparound porch that looked out over the pines. Gloria and I had spent 28 years building equity in that place, sacrificing vacations, driving used cars, heating at home so we could own something real. She designed the backyard herself, azaleas along the fence, a dogwood tree she babied through every drought, a vegetable garden that fed half the neighborhood every summer. Every room in that house held 40 years of marriage. 40 years don't just evaporate, because the woman who made them is gone. The silence was new, though. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning like always, reach across the bed, find cold sheets, make 2 cups of coffee without thinking, then pour one down the drain. I kept her garden gloves on the hook by the back door. Couldn't bring myself to touch them. Darius noticed. About 4 months after the funeral, he came by on a Saturday. Sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with algebra, where Gloria had taught him how to make her sweet potato pie, and said something that should have been a warning sign. Uncle Ray, this house is too big for one man. I laughed it off. I'm 63, not 93. I'm managing fine. I know. I just worry. These stairs. The yard. What if something happened and nobody found you for 2 days? I got neighbors. I got friends from the church. But wouldn't it be better having family around? That's when Vanessa spoke up. Darius's wife of 5 years. She was a mortgage broker with sharp eyes and a smile she'd practiced in a mirror. Everything she said rehearsed, like she was closing a deal. We've actually been talking, she said, setting down her glass. Our lease in Decatur is up next month. Rent out there has gotten ridiculous. We could move in with you, help with the upkeep, keep you company. I looked at Darius. His face had that earnest, boyish look, the same one he'd had at 17 when he needed bail money and called me before he called anyone else. I don't need taking care of, I said carefully. Of course not, Vanessa jumped in smooth as silk. But think about it practically. We'd split the utilities. Help with groceries, cooking, maintenance. You wouldn't have to eat frozen dinners alone every night. And honestly, Uncle Ray, it'd help us too, Darius added. We're trying to save for a down payment, and rent is eating us alive. Just temporarily. 6 months. Maybe a year. I should have said no right then. I should have trusted the small discomfort rising in my chest. But I was lonely. The house was so quiet, it had started to feel like a punishment. And this was Darius, the boy I'd taken to his first Atlanta Braves game, who'd helped me build Gloria's garden shed the summer he turned 18, who'd delivered the most beautiful eulogy at her funeral that half the church was still talking about it. Let me think on it, I said. Vanessa's smile widened just a little too. Fast. They moved in 3 weeks later. I gave them the large guest suite. Upstairs, the one with the private bath and the walk-in closet Jasmine had always coveted. Gloria's in my bedroom was on the main floor, and I wasn't ready for anyone else sleeping up in that wing anyway. The first month, I'll admit, was good. Better than good, even. The house felt like a home again. Vanessa cooked dinner most nights. Nothing like Gloria's cooking, not by a long shot, but I appreciated the gesture. Darius helped me fix the back porch steps I'd been putting off for 2 summers. We'd sit out on the deck in the evenings, drink sweet tea, watch the Braves together. I started to think maybe this could work. And small things began to shift. Vanessa started rearranging the living room. Just freshening things up, she said. One afternoon I came in from a walk, and Gloria's favorite reading chair, the big wingback she'd had reupholstered twice because she loved it so much, was gone. I found it in the storage room off the garage, covered with a moving blanket. The fabric was getting threadbare, Vanessa explained when I asked. I thought we could donate it. Open up the space. I brought it back inside that night and put it right where it belonged. More things started disappearing after that. Gloria's photo albums from the bookshelf. Her collection of black art prints. Pieces she'd been buying since the 80s. The hand-stitched quilt her mother had made that hung on the hallway wall. I put them in the storage unit for safekeeping, Vanessa said. The house was feeling cluttered. Darius said nothing. Just found something on his phone to look at. The second month, they made changes I hadn't approved at all. Vanessa hired painters to redo the dining room without asking me. Tore down the wallpaper Gloria had ordered special from a shop in Atlanta and replaced it with something Vanessa called warm greige. She said it would increase the home's value. I'm not selling, I told her. Of course not. But it's smart to maintain your equity. You want to leave Jasmine and Marcus something meaningful, right? That night I heard them through the heating vents. Old houses carry sound the way old folks carry memory, everywhere. We need to move faster. Vanessa's voice drifted up clear as a bell. He's digging in. We talked about this, Darius said. We have to be patient. Build his trust. Patient doesn't pay off $41,000 in debt, baby. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. $41,000. Darius had never once mentioned money problems. Not once in 24 years. The next morning, I drove to my bank. 15 years, same branch, same teller, Miss Sherrill. She knew me by name, knew Gloria by name. Mr. Raymond, she said carefully, did you authorize someone to inquire about adding themselves to your accounts? My chest went tight. Who? Your nephew. He came in last week, said he wanted to help manage your finances. Make sure bills got paid. I told him he'd need to come in with you and bring proper documentation. I did not authorize that. Her expression shifted to the particular kind of concern that older black women carry, not pity, not alarm, but a quiet, dignified knowing. I didn't think so. That's why I held off. Thank you, Cheryl. Don't add anyone to my accounts unless I am standing right in front of you asking. Yes, sir. I'll make a note. I drove home slowly. Darius had tried to access my accounts without asking me. Didn't bring it up. Didn't mention it. Just walked into my bank and tried. When I got home, Vanessa was measuring the living room windows for new curtains. What are you doing? I asked, getting measurements. These drapes are ancient. Gloria made those drapes. She didn't stop measuring. I went to my home office, a small room off the kitchen where I kept my files, my insurance documents, the deed to this house. The filing cabinet drawer was open a half-inch. I always closed it completely. I'd worked 30 years as a city inspector. I was precise about things like that, Thought my files were there. But they weren't in the order I kept them. Someone had been in there looking. That evening, I called my old friend Reverend Clifton Cole, who also happened to be a licensed attorney. We'd known each other since we were young men at Morehouse. "Clifton," I said, "I need your counsel. It's about this house." He listened to everything. When I finished, the line was quiet for a moment. "Raymond," he said, "do you have a living trust?" "I have a will." "A will can be contested. A living trust cannot. If someone wanted to claim you weren't of sound mind, they could tie up your estate for years. But a trust transfers your assets directly to your beneficiaries the moment you pass. No probate. No contest window. You think Darius would go that far? I think you need to protect yourself before we find out. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Yes. And Raymond, don't tell anyone you're coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay still and glorious in my bedroom. Our room, always our room, and listened to Darius and Vanessa moving around upstairs. At midnight, I heard them come down, whispering. I held my breath. They went into my office. I waited 4 minutes, then eased out of bed, crept down the hallway in my socks. The office door was cracked. Light spilled out underneath. "The deed has to be somewhere in here," Vanessa was saying. Her voice was sharp, efficient, the voice she probably used with difficult clients. "It's probably in a safe deposit box at the bank," Darius said. "Can you get to it?" "Not without him. Then we need to move on the other angle. If we can get him to sign a power of attorney, just for financial matters, I can handle the accounts, the bills, everything. Tell him it's for his convenience. In case something happens." A pause. Then, "And the house?" "We convince him to sign it over into your name. Tell him it saves Jasmine and Marcus from inheritance taxes. Make it sound like it's for their benefit. And then what? We can't just put him out. We don't have to." Venice's voice dropped, and I pressed closer to the wall. "There's a place called Heritage Gardens over in Conyers. Assisted living. About $2,800 a month. We tell Jasmine and Marcus he's been showing signs of confusion, that he's not safe living alone. They're in Houston and Seattle. They'll believe what we put in front of them. And the house? Once it's in your name, we list it. A property like this in Stone Mountain right now? Easy $2 million. We clear the debt, invest what's left, start over clean." Something in my chest cracked open like old timber. This was Darius, the boy I had raised, the boy who'd cried like a child at Gloria's graveside, standing in my office at midnight, talking about warehousing me like I was inconvenient furniture. I backed away from the door silently, returned to my room, and lay there with my eyes open until the sun came up over the Pines dot. In the morning I acted normal. Made grits and eggs. Asked about their plans. Let Vanessa pour me coffee. I didn't want Dot. Then Darius cleared his throat. "Uncle Ray, I've been thinking. You should look into setting up a power of attorney. Just in case something happened, someone you trust could handle your bills, your finances. Take the pressure off you." "I'll think about it," I said evenly. "Also, I got a buddy who does estate planning. He mentioned that transferring property early can save a lot in taxes for your kids. Maybe." Vanessa set down her mug. "It's really worth considering, Uncle Ray. You want to make sure Jasmine and Marcus get the most out of everything you've built, right?" "Of course," I said, and looked out at the backyard where Gloria's dogwood was just starting to bud. I was at Clifton's office by 9 o'clock. "I need everything locked down," I told him. "Living trust. Power of attorney for Jasmine, not Darius. I want it airtight." Clifton nodded slowly, the way men of his generation nod when they've seen this story before and hate that it keeps getting told. "I'll draft a letter documenting your mental competency. Your clarity of thought, your reasons for every decision. We'll have it witnessed and notarized. How fast? Documents ready by tomorrow afternoon. Trust filed with the county by Friday. I called Jasmine that night, not to tell her everything, just to hear her voice. She could tell something was off the way mothers and daughters can always tell, even across state lines. Daddy, are you okay? I will be, I said. I love you, baby. I love you too. You sure you don't need me to come? Not yet. Soon. The next afternoon, I signed everything at Clifton's office. 2 of our deacons from church, Brother Eugene and Sister Pauline, came as witnesses. Sister Pauline had known Gloria for 30 years. She squeezed my hand when I signed the last page and didn't say a word because she didn't need to. The living trust transferred the house to the trust upon my death, with Jasmine and Marcus as sole beneficiaries. I retained full right to live in my home for the rest of my natural life. Power of attorney went to Jasmine, with Marcus as backup. Not Darius. Not Vanessa. It's filed, Clifton said. No one can touch this house, Raymond. Not legally. Not ever. Something loosened in my shoulders that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Thank you, Clifton. Tell them soon. Before they do something you can't undo. That decision got made for me 2 days later. I came home from the hardware store to find Vanessa on the phone in the living room, standing right next to Gloria's reading chair, one hand resting on its back like she owned it. She didn't hear me come in. Yes, Heritage Gardens. I'm calling about availability for a family member. He's 63, relatively healthy, but we've been noticing some confusion, some memory lapses. We're concerned he's not safe managing on his own. Yes, and what is the current monthly rate? And the wait list? I stood in the doorway with a bag of weather stripping in my hand. She turned, saw me, and here's what told me everything I needed to know about Vanessa. She didn't even flinch, didn't look embarrassed, didn't stumble. I'll call you back, she said into the phone, and hung up smooth, as if she'd just been checking on a restaurant reservation. Uncle Ray, you're home early. Memory lapses? I said quietly. Confusion? I was just exploring options. You're not getting any younger, and we can't stay forever. We have to think about the future. Get out, I said. She blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my house. Both of you. Today. Darius appeared at the top of the stairs. Uncle Ray, what's happening? Come down here and tell me about your plan. Tell me about Heritage Gardens in Conyers. Tell me about the power of attorney and putting the house in your name to save the kids from inheritance taxes. Tell me all of it. His face went the color of ash. I heard you, I said. 3 nights ago. In my office. I heard every word. Vanessa straightened. She looked at Darius, then back at me, and when she spoke her voice had dropped the warmth entirely, like a coat she'd only been wearing for convenience. We've been living here for 2 months. We've contributed to this household. We have tenant rights in Georgia. You can't just order us out. Watch me. 30 days notice, she said. That's the law. I pulled out my phone. You want to talk about the law? I'll call the DeKalb County Police right now. We can discuss attempted financial fraud, elder exploitation, conspiracy. You pick. Darius sat down heavily on the bottom stair. He looked like a man who just realized exactly what he'd gambled and lost. You have until tomorrow morning, I said. Take your things and go. And if we don't? Vanessa asked, and to her credit or her damnation, she still hadn't blinked. Then I call Clifton, I call the police, and I call Jasmine and Marcus. I tell them everything, every single detail. You decide. I saw the calculation happen behind Vanessa's eyes. She was quick, I'll give her that. She grabbed Darius by the arm. "Come on, let's pack." They were gone before 8 o'clock that evening. Darius left a note on the kitchen table, folded once. Asterisk Uncle Ray, I'm sorry. I know what we did was wrong. Stephanie Vanessa convinced me it was the only way out of the debt. That's not an excuse. I know it's not. I hope someday you can forgive me. Asterisk, I read it twice. Then I crumpled it and threw it in the trash dot. The house was quiet again. But this was a different kind of quiet than the grief that had settled in after Gloria passed. That silence had been sad. This one was clean, the quiet of a man who had just taken his home back and knew exactly what it had cost him. I called Jasmine. "Daddy?" She could always read me in 3 syllables. I told her everything. She was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was steady in the way that the strongest women always manage to be steady, even when they're burning. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. We should have been there more. I should have been there. You have your life, baby. No, I'm booking a flight. Me and Marcus both. And Daddy, we want you to come stay with us. Rotate between Houston and Seattle. 6 months each. You shouldn't be doing this alone. I'm not alone. I have the church. I have the neighbors. I have Gloria's garden. Then we're coming more. Every few months. I promise you." After we hung up, I walked through every room of my house in the dark, touching things. The wing-back chair in the corner. The quilt I'd brought back from the storage unit. Gloria's garden gloves on their hook. I stood on the back porch for a long time, looking out at the dogwood, the azaleas, the garden she'd poured herself into for 30 years. I thought about Darius, about the boy who used to help her plant bulbs in the fall, who'd cried real tears at her funeral, who'd called every Sunday for 4 months just to check on me. When had he changed? Or had he always been capable of this, and I just never let myself see it? 3 weeks later, Clifton called. "Raymond, I need you to hear this and stay calm. Say it. Darius has filed a petition claiming you are mentally incompetent. He's seeking guardianship over your person and your estate." The blood drained out of my hands. Can he do that? He can try. He won't succeed. We have your competency letter, 2 witnesses, the notarized trust, the fact that you successfully executed a complex multi-document estate plan. A judge is going to look at that petition and see desperation, not evidence. But Raymond, this tells us he's not backing down. Vanessa's still driving this. What do I do? Nothing right now. Let him burn his money on a lawyer. The petition will be dismissed. But get your property secured? I hired a security company that week. Cameras on every corner of the house. New deadbolts on every door. A monitoring system tied to my phone and to Jasmine's. I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. The petition was dismissed inside of 60 days. The judge noted in his ruling that there was no credible evidence of incapacity, and that the petitioner appeared to be acting from financial motivation rather than genuine concern. I never told you what that felt like, to have a judge write that out in black and white. It felt like being believed. It felt like standing up straight again. For 2 months, nothing. No calls, no letters. Jasmine flew in for a long weekend. We worked in Gloria's garden together, and she cried a little over the azaleas and tried to hide it, the way women who are trying to be strong for you always try to hide it. Marcus called twice a week. He and his wife were seriously talking about relocating to Atlanta. Then a letter arrived from an attorney I didn't know. Darius was claiming a verbal agreement for future ownership of the property, allegedly entered into in discussion the previous fall. He was threatening civil action unless I agreed to a settlement. I forwarded it to Clifton. He called me 20 minutes later laughing. Not the kind of laughing that's happy, but the kind that means a man has seen this particular brand of foolishness before. Raymond, there is no verbal agreement. There is no documentation. He's desperate, and Vanessa has convinced him there's still a play here. Let me respond. Clifton sent a letter outlining the trust, the power of attorney designations, and a clear warning that continued legal harassment would result in a motion for sanctions and a restraining order. The letters stopped, but not Darius. 4 months later, certified mail. Darius and Vanessa were suing me for services rendered round-the-clock care, property management, and financial oversight valued at $11,000 a month. They wanted $66,000 for the 6 months they'd lived in my house rent-free, while I covered every bill, every utility, every meal. Clifton didn't even wait for me to ask. Countersuit. Attempted fraud. Emotional distress. I'll also file for a restraining order. No contact. No proximity to the property. I don't want their money, Clifton. Then we file for the restraining order and we make sure this ends. The judge granted the restraining order inside of 2 weeks. Darius's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning he couldn't refile. The judge called it frivolous and vexatious, and ordered Darius to pay my attorney's fees. It was by every legal measure overdot until the night the Stone Mountain Police called me at 2:45 in the morning. Mr. Raymond Coleman, we have your nephew, Darius Whitfield, in custody. He was found on your property, attempting to access through a basement window. Given the active restraining order, we're treating this as attempted breaking and entering. We need you to come in and give a statement. I drove to the station, with my hands barely steady on the wheel. Darius was in an interview room looking like a man who had fallen a long way and just now understood how far. He was alone. No Vanessa. The officer gave me the summary. Darius claimed he'd left personal items in the house and was trying to retrieve them. No one believed that story, including Darius. You could see it in his face. I sat across from him. He looked up. His eyes were red and hollow. She left me, he said. Vanessa took what was in the accounts and moved to Charlotte with somebody she met at a conference. I lost my job 2 months ago. I'm being evicted. He stopped, swallowed. I know I don't have any right to be here. I know that. I didn't know where else to go. You were always the one who fixed things for me. Something old in me wanted to reach across the table. This was still Loren's boy. Still the kid who'd called me crying at 1 a.m. over a broken heart when he was 19. And I'd driven 40 minutes to sit with him. But I also remembered his voice in my office. We'll put him in a care home. Tell Jasmine and Marcus he's not managing well. They'll believe what we put in front of them. I remembered Vanessa's hand resting on Gloria's reading chair, like she was already pricing it at an estate sale. You tried to steal this house. I said quietly. You were going to lock me away in a facility and sell the home that Gloria and I spent 40 years building. You were going to tell my children I'd lost my mind. I know. His voice broke. I know what I did. I was desperate, and I let her convince me that it was the only way. I'm not making excuses. I know it was wrong. I know it's unforgivable. But I'm asking you, please. The officer looked at me. Do you want to press charges, sir? I looked at Darius for a long time. I looked at him the way you look at something that was once precious and has been broken past repairing. And I thought about Gloria. What would she have said? She was the kind of woman who believed in mercy right up until mercy became an invitation for more harm. She was smarter than me about people. She always had been. Yes, I said. I want to press charges. Darius's face crumpled. He pressed his hand over his mouth. You made your choices, I said. Now you live inside them. He was charged with attempted breaking and entering and violation of a restraining order. 6 months probation. Mandatory counseling. No contact with me or my property. I haven't seen him since. I won't pretend I don't think about it. Some nights I wonder if I was too hard. He was family, the closest thing to a son I ever raised, outside of my own. But then I remember what it felt like standing in that hallway at midnight, hearing him plan my life away. And I remember that the strongest women I've ever known, my mother, my sister Lorraine, my Gloria, they all taught me the same thing. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's just vulnerability with a different name. Jasmine comes every 3 months now. She and her husband are seriously looking at a house in Smyrna, close enough to have dinner on Sundays. Marcus is exploring a transfer to the Atlanta regional office. They're calling more, checking in the way I'd always hoped they would, not because they felt guilty, but because they finally understood what home means. I tend Gloria's garden. The azaleas need deadheading. The dogwood wants pruning. The vegetable beds are coming in strong. Tomatoes, collards, peppers along the fence the way she always planted them. The house is quiet. But it's mine. Fully, legally, completely mine. I'm 65 now. I think about time differently than I used to. About what I'm leaving behind and who I'm leaving it to. When I'm gone, Jasmine and Marcus will inherit this property through the trust. They'll decide what to do with it. That's their right. But it will be their right, not something stolen from them by someone who counted on them being too far away to notice. Last month, a letter came to the house addressed to Jasmine. She called me about it. Daddy, Darius wrote to me. He says he's in a recovery program. He wants to make amends. He asked me if there's any chance you'd read a letter from him. That's entirely your choice, baby. Whatever you decide, I support. But what do you think? I was quiet for a moment. Standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the dogwood Gloria had babied through 5 Georgia droughts. I think some people do real work and change, I said finally. And I think some people learn to say the right words. The only way you ever know which one you're dealing with is time. A lot of it. The letter is in my desk drawer. I haven't opened it. Maybe I will someday. Or maybe some betrayals go too deep to bridge, no matter how much you once loved the person on the other side of them. What I know is this: protecting yourself is not cruelty. Setting a boundary is not selfishness. And sometimes the family that shows up for you, the neighbors who bring food, the church brothers and sisters who sit with you, the women and men in your life who prove their love in ordinary, consistent, unglamorous ways. That family is stronger than blood. Gloria's reading chair sits in the living room where it belongs. Her photos are on the mantel. Her garden blooms every spring. I protected this home. Even if it cost me my nephew, I would do it again. Thank you for being here and letting me share my story. If it touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me what city and state you're watching from. I love knowing where you all are. If you want to support me even more, there's a donation link in the description. I share real-life stories like this every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular videos will appear on your screen. Choose whichever one calls to you. Until next time, remember, your story isn't over just because someone tried to write the ending without you.